Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Bible study. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure that you say hi in the chat box. Let me know where you are joining me from. Let me know if you can hear me. Just wanted to say hi to everyone before we get started. Even if you're watching the replay, please let me know in the comments below where you're joining us from. I'm Elena. I, along with my husband, Tori, both serve as pastors of Empowerment Church here in New Orleans, Louisiana. And usually we are either teaching together or he has been teaching by himself. But he is preparing for Sunday's message where we have been talking about the gifts, the spiritual gifts. So we stream every single Sunday at 9:30 a.m. and we have Bible study every single Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. So thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to be talking about managing our emotions. We're going to be diving into how to manage our emotions. Now, this is the fifth emotion that we have talked about. So if you missed the other four that we talked about before, we have talked about gratitude, we've talked about abandonment, we've talked about fear and joy. So those are the four videos that you can watch on YouTube if you wanted to catch them. They will all be linked in the description box, so you can definitely watch any one of those if you wanted to after today's live. We have been on this series mainly because we feel like it really helps coincide with the Sunday messages. So Sunday, we're talking about gifts and how to kind of figure out who you are. And alongside of that, you also need to know how to manage your overall emotions once you figure out exactly who you are and who everyone around you is, right? So today we're going to be talking about managing anger, and we all have dealt with anger in some form or another. So I wanted to ask you this as we start today's message: how do you express your anger? How do you express your anger? Are you the type to start shouting? Are you going to go off? Or are you going to get quiet? Are you going to internalize? Does it depend on the situation? Sometimes you go off, sometimes you're quiet. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments, how do you handle your anger? Are you the type to lash out? Are you the type to internalize? Are you the type to try and act like you're not angry? Is that you? Let me know. Let me know in the comments below. I just love to be able to talk to you all and see if we're all dealing with the same type of emotions or the same type of things. I can tell you all that I am a quiet storm. I get really quiet when I'm angry. And if I get too quiet, just know that I'm not happy. So how do you handle yours? Anna is saying she expressed her anger by speaking her mind, yelling or screaming when she is very upset. Tori is saying he gets loud with it. Oh, someone say Harlan says he meditates. He meditates, that's a good practice to have. Depends on the situation. Most of the time you're calm and reflecting. That's a good one. I'm not good at this. I cry like a baby. I have shed a tear every now and then. Not Justin Jones. I never yell though. Never yell. I shut it down. As you can see, all of us do different things. We have different ways. Elaine says she stays quiet. So some people will shut down. Some people get loud. Some people they yell. Some people get quiet. We all have different ways that we will express our anger. We all have different things that we do. But we all get angry, right? We all get angry. And usually we try and act like we don't get angry, or we feel like it's a negative or a bad emotion. We don't want to get angry, but we do. And we try and hide that anger sometimes, or we may regret that anger sometimes. But Anger itself is not a bad emotion. Anger itself is not a bad emotion. The issue is how we express that anger. That's when it becomes a bad emotion. It's learning how to express our anger in a healthy way, in a godly way, in a way that's not destructive, in a way that doesn't cause permanent damage to our overall relationships. That's where the issue comes in. It's not with the anger itself, because God created us all and we all have a tendency to get angry at some times. But it's how we express it that really affects us overall, affects our relationships, and can affect our overall well-being, right? So, in order to help us become better people, one of the things that we really have to learn how to do is to express our anger in a healthy and a godly way. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's go ahead and look at Psalm 79. That's where we're going to start today. This scripture will help us look at our anger in healthy ways and learn how to deal with it. So let me make this a little bit bigger so you all can see it. Psalm 79, O God, the nations have invaded your inheritance. They have defiled your holy temple. They have reduced Jerusalem to rubble. They have left dead bodies of your servants as food for the birds of the sky, the flesh of your own people for the animals of the wild. They have poured out blood like water all around Jerusalem, and there is no one to bury the dead. We are objects of contempt to our neighbors, of scorn and derision around us. How long, O Lord, will you be angry forever? How long will your jealousy burn like fire? Pour out your wrath on the nations that do not acknowledge you, on the kingdoms that do not call your name. So when we are looking at this scripture, the psalmist is basically looking at, he's talking about the Babylonians. He's talking about and complaining, really. He's complaining about how they have destroyed the temple, how the city is reduced to rubble, how many people have died, and the nations are scoffing at God's inaction because God isn't doing anything, and he is highly upset about it. So he's complaining about what the Babylonians are doing in what they're doing to the temple, how they have just destroyed this place, how he let them in, and he's asking God to do something. He's mad. He's asking God to do something. I want you to act. I want you to come in. I want you to take vengeance. He is angry because he believes the Babylonians have wronged him. They've done him wrong. And this really happens with us as well, right? So whenever anything ever happens to us, we feel as though we wronged, especially instantly we get angry. And psychologists tells us that anger is usually a secondary emotion. It's not the very first emotion that we experience. It's a secondary emotion. We are usually hurt or scared or something else has happened. We feel disrespected. It's a primary emotion that happens first, and then we get angry. So this happens when we feel as though someone has wronged us. And even if they didn't mean to make us feel this way, even if it's not true, when we get angry, we still want vindication. When we believe we have been wronged, we want vindication. We want to be right. We want to be right. We want everyone to agree with us, right? We want everyone to know how this person has made me angry. This person did me wrong. I need to be justified. They are wrong and I am right. Even in Psalm 79, in verse 12, the psalmist is asking God to pour out his wrath on the Babylonians, right? Do something about this. And we do the same thing. When we mad, we want people who have hurt us. We want to tell everybody about it. We want everyone to know that we are right. We want to talk about it and let everybody be on our side. That is a natural human reaction. It is exactly what we do. We want to tell other people, tell our friends, tell our family what our coworkers did, or what the person that cut me off did, because we want to be justified in that anger that we naturally have. So the first thing that we want to do is we want vindication. We want vindication. We want to feel like we are right. We want to be justified. We want everyone else to agree with us. So what do we do with the first thing that we get angry? Because what happens when we get angry and we want vindication and we want to be justified and we want everyone to be on our side, what we may do is end up trying to talk about people, or we may get so mad at them. We want them to experience the same type of hurt that we are experiencing. So we can get into a dangerous territory because we are tempted to do things that we may regret later. We may say something that we just shouldn't say at all. And then we're going to feel bad after we say it. But in that moment, you just want to say something because you want to be justified, because you feel like you're right and they are wrong. So the very first thing that you should do if you feel angry is found in Psalm 79:12. And it says this. Proverbs 29:11. And it says this: fools vent their anger, but the wise quietly hold it back. First thing that we got to do is restrain. Restrain our anger. Now, this is very challenging to do because this takes a lot of emotional intelligence. This takes a lot of self-reflection. It takes a lot of time to get adjusted to being able to restrain yourself. And one thing that I know that usually when you are trying to do this on a consistent basis, you will find yourself having different experiences where you have to apply restrain in order to become better at it, right? You just find yourself in different situations where you just have to restrain yourself to exercise the muscle of restraining yourself. Now, restraining yourself and what this scripture is saying does not mean that you need to bury your anger or not deal with it at all, or act like you're not angry. That's not what this scripture is saying. That's not what this scripture is saying at all. What the scripture is saying is that you need to control your anger and know how to express it. Fools vent their anger, but the wise quietly hold it back. It didn't say that you're not angry. It just says that you shouldn't vent your anger. You should restrain yourself. So what does this look like? This could be taking deep breaths. This could be listening to music, walking around, stop talking altogether. Just get a little bit more quiet and get a little bit more self-reflective. Taking a time out, doing some type of meditation. I saw that Harlan said he meditates. That is a way of restraining yourself so that you don't say something that you're going to regret, so that you don't lash out and then instantly feel like, man, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't have did that. This will cause us to not have to regret as much if we're able to just get a little bit more quiet and restrain ourselves, right? So that's the very first thing that you need to do. Point one, first thing that you need to do is to learn how to restrain. And like we said, some of the things that you could do is take a walk, just get quiet, meditate, listen to some music, take a break, just get yourself away from the situation for a moment so that you're not constantly rehearsing what has just happened. You're just going to need to take a moment. The next thing, after you have restrained yourself, we're going to look at Psalm 79, verse 5 to figure out the second thing that we need to do. And it says this: how long, Lord, will you be angry forever? How long will your jealousy burn like fire? Pour out your wrath on the nations that do not acknowledge you, on the kingdoms that do not call your name. So at this moment, he is angry. Like, right? He just finished talking about how the Babylonians have come in. They're tossing things around. They've just destroyed the temple. They're doing all of these things. And now in this next section, in verse 5, he is angry. He's like, what you about to do? God, what are you doing? Are you going to be mad at me forever? He is lashing out in this verse. So the second thing that we need to do, admit that we are angry. You know how many times especially women, we are super guilty for this. And I know I have done this as well. You mad? Nope. I'm not mad. I'm good. You good? I'm good. We good. Like, we will act like we're not mad. Furious, and we'll act like we aren't angry. We will act like we're fine. We'll act like it's not that big of a deal, or things don't bother us. And I'm not mad. You mad? I'm not mad. Right? When we know that we are upset, but we will act like we aren't upset at all. But in this verse, in verse 5, the psalmist here, he is not acting, he is saying exactly how he feels. He's lashing out. He's telling God, I am angry. I'm angry because you didn't do something and I wanted you to do it. Look, these Babylonians have messed over me. And God, I need you to fix this. I need you to make this better. But you're not doing anything. And I'm very, very angry about it. Right? Many times we don't want to say that we're angry. We want to act like nothing is bothering us. But what ends up happening when we do this is we end up internalizing it. So what happens when you internalize anger? What happens when you internalize anger? You become passive aggressive. You can become self-critical. You start to self-hate. You'll start rehearsing the same event over and over and over in your head. I should have did this. I should have did that. Because now you're not expressing it out loud. It's all staying internal. So I'm talking to myself over and over, rehearsing this event because I'm not expressing that I was angry in the first place. So it's all bottled up in the inside. And even with this, we can get physically sick. We can make ourselves sick from just internalizing our own anger and not saying anything. We can get depressed because we are just rehearsing it in our own mind. We're not saying it to anyone, not even admitting it to ourselves or saying it to God. We're trying to work it all out in our own mind because we don't want to admit that we're angry, but we are, right? So we try and blame other people, or we'll say that they did it on purpose. You did this to me on purpose. You knew that would make me mad. They may have not known, right? Right? But we do that because we just don't want to be honest and say, hey, if you meant it or if you didn't mean it in this moment, it didn't feel good and it made me angry. It could be that simple. But a lot of times we don't want to express it, so we internalize it. And then all of these other things can happen, which could have a worse effect on our overall bodies, on our minds, on how we feel about ourselves. And now it's manifesting in other areas of my life, right? So admit that you are angry. Admit it. Say it out loud. And a lot of times we don't even like to tell God that we're angry because we believe that anger is a negative emotion and that God can't handle our anger, right? Like, we want to feel like we are superior. We are super Christians. I don't get mad. I never get mad, right? But in reality, being angry is a human experience. It's a human experience, and it happens in response to just situations that we perceive to be stressful, to situations we perceive to be unfair, upsetting, whatever the case may be. We get angry. So we need to express it. We need to say it. We need to be able to let it out, because once again, if you internalize it, you're keeping all of those emotions inside, and it's going to affect you in the long run. And even when we're talking to God, I know a lot of us like to filter our prayers. I've been there, I've done it, where I'm filtering my prayers and I'm trying to act like I'm not really angry. Like, God, I'm really okay. And I'm going to do the peaceful, nice prayer that I normally would do, when God knows how I'm already feeling and thinking. So why not just, only person I'm trying to fool is myself, because I'm not fooling him. But it's only an act that we are really still trying to keep with ourselves and trying to keep with God. But he already knows, and he can handle our anger. He made us, so he can definitely handle our anger, right? So the only thing that this does is it creates a toxic environment for yourself. It's toxic to you. It's when you internalize it, it's only toxic to you. So what happens if we admit our anger and we do tell God that we are angry? When we express our anger to God through our prayers, just saying it out loud, letting it come, screaming, whatever the case may be, whatever you need to do in that moment, when you do that, this helps you to identify the source of your anger. It helps you to identify the source of your anger. When you're praying about this situation, whatever the situation may be, it causes you to really be able to think about the situation. And remember, we talked about how anger is the secondary emotion. It's not the primary emotion. So the primary emotion could be hurt. It could be disrespect. It could be stress. It could be anything. But we don't know usually what that emotion is until we process, until we work through it. And we can do that through our prayers. So are you mad that someone cut you off in traffic? Or are you really angry because they made you feel disrespected? And that's piling on the feelings of disrespect that you feel at work from your coworkers, and you feel like no one takes you seriously, right? Like, there's usually something else going on underneath that initial emotion. Are you angry that your spouse was late for dinner? Or are you really angry because it made you feel unimportant? And people have made you feel unimportant your entire life. See what I'm saying? Like, what's the primary reason for your anger? What's the real reason that you are angry? And what's the feeling that's coming underneath that anger? Through our prayers, through the time that we spend with God and that we pray and we vent and we are honest, because no one else is in the room, right? You can be honest. Through this moment, when you are honest with God, this is when you can figure out what's really going on. And I have done this also through journaling. If you like, you know what? I just don't have the words. I don't know what to say in that moment. I have nothing. I don't know what to say. Write it down. Write down the situation that has happened, and then write down how you have felt about that situation, and write down what could possibly be going on instead. Because that's when we start to get to the reality of what's going on, is when we express our anger to God. When we stop pretending like we pretend with everyone else, when we stop pretending and we really start being honest with God, is how we can start to get to the bottom line of what's really going on, of how we actually feel. We can get to the root of the issue, and then we can start to change that issue. Let's look at the third thing. The third thing is going to be challenging. It's going to be challenging, but it's the truth. We need to seek forgiveness for our role in being angry. We need to seek forgiveness in our role. In verse 9 of the same Psalm, Psalm 79, the psalmist alternates. Now, he's alternating here between blaming the Babylonians for his problems, because, they tossed up everything. He's mad at God because God didn't come in and do his wrath and just mess up these people, right? and admitting his own wrongdoing. So in the verse 5, he's like going off, right? In verse 9, he says this: help us, God our Savior, for the glory of your name. Deliver us and forgive our sins for your name's sake. He switched. He's blaming the Babylonians, but he's also asking for God's forgiveness and mercy. This is so challenging to do in real life. This is like one of the most challenging things to do. Why? Because when we are mad, we want the situation to be black and white. When we're angry, we want everything to be just black and white. We want it to just be they're wrong, I'm right, and everyone should just agree with me. But problems are very, very, very rarely one person's fault. Very rarely. Usually, we all have a part. We all have a part to play. And we want to look at the world as black and white, but a lot of times it's gray. It's just gray. There's a lot of gray. And we don't like that because that means that we could have handled some situations better. We could have handled some situations better. We could have been a little bit more proactive. Maybe there was a way that we could have responded that wouldn't have made it be so extreme so quickly. Maybe, right? But it's very hard to admit this. And we are all right in our own eyes. We're all right in our own eyes. So what I usually like to do, especially because, I know that I'm always right in my own eyes, is I try to talk to someone that I feel like will tell me the honest truth if there is a way that I could have handled it better. Usually it is Tori. Like, I will tell my husband a situation and I'm like, see, well, don't you think I was right, huh? And they're like, well, you could have done this, this, and this. You were partially right, but maybe they felt this way. And what that other person will do for you is kind of show you another perspective, show you another side. Now, if all your friends tell you right, and go ahead, girl, you might need to find some other people, some mentors maybe, or someone else that's going to challenge you. But with Tori, he has a great way of telling me, hey, maybe you could have looked at it this way. And it's not in a mean and negative way. It just gives you another perspective, another way that you can kind of analyze a situation and have it not be black and white. Have it not to be that, I'm always right and you're wrong. Because as we're learning with the spiritual gifts, the teaching that Tori is doing on Sundays, Tori is talking about how we all have different gifts and we all have ways of expressing it in different ways. And a lot of times we feel like our way is correct, but God has created us all with a different gift because they all work together so that we can get to our destiny. They all work together for our good. We need them all. So when we believe that we're always right 100% of the time, what usually happens is we're blocking out a lot of those gifts that could bless our lives. We're blocking out a lot of the relationships that could help us in the long run. We're blocking out growing and learning more about ourselves and learning more about other people. We're just blocking all of that out because we're right and they're wrong. That's just what we're normally doing, right? So when we're mad, when we're angry, we need to take some time to assess how we could have possibly contributed to the problem, what we could have possibly done to make this a little bit better. Now, this takes a lot of self-awareness, a lot of emotional intelligence, and it takes a lot of time to learn how to do this. It just takes some time. For all three of these points, to restrain yourself takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes you to do some evaluation. It just takes moments, right? To admit that you're actually angry. Once again, take some self-evaluation, take some time, and to seek forgiveness to put it out there, to see how you could possibly have aided in this. All of this takes time. It takes evaluation. It takes some emotional intelligence. It definitely is not something that instantly happens. But what happens is that every single time you do this, every single time you restrain yourself, every single time you admit, you know what, I'm angry, and let me pray about this, and let me see, why am I angry? What about this has affected me? Is there something in my childhood that possibly could have happened? Why am I reacting this way? Why is this making me angry? If we take the time to actually analyze it and pray about it, and then we say, okay, I know why I'm angry now. How can I make this better? Could I have said something better? Did I react the right way? Could I have reacted a different way? And doing this over and over and over, and continuously over and over and over, helps you to, over time, become much, much better at managing your anger. And it will actually make your anger useful, right? Instead of just being angry and just getting over it, and just being angry again and just getting over it, what will start to happen is you'll get angry, you'll identify something about yourself that you could possibly change, you'll learn from that experience, and then you'll get over it. And then the next time that situation comes around, it won't have the exact same effect that it has on you in the past. You get to experience it differently this time. And that's how we do anger, or we learn from our anger in a completely different way. That's how we become better Christians overall, because even if we see that same anger in another person, then we can even identify, you know what, that I shouldn't take that personally, because they're not mad at me. They're mad about something else. Something else is affecting them. Something else has hurt them. That's something from their past. And you'll be able to handle situations a little bit better, because you'll be the calm one. You'll be the one that's not internalizing every single thing and taking it personally every single time. It will become a little bit easier, right? So if y'all have questions, let me know. Questions. Put #Q. I see that everyone has experienced this. And you know what? The great thing about this is that none of us are immune. I have had times where I've been angry and I couldn't calm myself down. I just needed to take a break. I've had times where I've been super calm. It's a practice, right? You never have arrived. You've never won the game of anger. There's always going to be a time where you win, and then times where you fall short. That's just the game of life, right? That's just what we're in. But now that we know the principles that we need to monitor our anger, to stay on top of our anger, to make sure that we are that we have the tools to make sure that it doesn't overwhelm us every single time. Now we can put these notes in a book, write it down, put it in a planner, put it in your phone, to where anytime you need to reflect back on it, you can look back. I need to restrain. I need to make sure that I'm not letting it overwhelm me. I need to admit that I'm actually angry, pray about it, see what's at the root of it. And then I need to see, how could I have handled this better? How could I have handled this better? Is there anything that I could have done to make this a little bit better? Right? So I know that one was deep. And it might have been a lot, but I want us to, the point of empowerment is not to just tell you a message that's just going to make you feel good. Sometimes we're going to challenge you. Sometimes we want you to think a little bit more about your own personal actions and how you could do them, how you can handle things even better. That's the part of life where we look at everything and we look at it at how we could possibly do handle things even better over time, right? So let's look and see with some questions. What's the best way to convey your anger to people in authority over you? Ooh, really good question. So I would say this. One of the best things that I have done when I have needed to communicate anger is making sure I watch my tone. You know, your tone can be everything. If you approach it in with a certain type of tone, with a certain type of message, if you don't, if you are harsh in your delivery, it can instantly make someone shut down. I feel like transparency and honesty and a level of softness is needed, especially if that person is in authority over you, because you don't want it to be seen as a form of disrespect. However, in that same sense, I think that if you are able to express yourself in that calm way where you just say, hey, I would love to be able to sit down to talk with you over lunch, or, have a set meeting, especially if it's in a workplace environment where we can discuss these particular things. And even you can state that something is bothering you, or something made you angry, or something upset you. I think that tone and honesty is the best feel in this situation. And this is across the board when it comes down to anyone that you are in a relationship with, or that you have some type of co-worker relationship with, right? Because especially with your spouse, me and Tori have laid like ground rules for our marriage. We have come into our marriage, and one of the things that we always say is, I know that my spouse would never say anything that intentionally hurts my feelings. Now, he could hurt my feelings, but I know that he intentionally did not do it. That statement lays the groundwork of how we are able to handle ourselves, and making sure that I'm not instantly trying to, I know that he's not instantly trying to hurt me. And I believe that if you are able to lay ground rules, even in a co-working space, or if you're able to state at the beginning, hey, I know you may not have intentionally wanted to hurt my feelings or to upset me, so I just wanted to bring this to your attention because it did upset me. And I know that that probably was not your intention. So I thought that we could talk about this, right? That is a way of saying how you feel without having a tone of you were trying to make me mad, right? So it's the tone, it's the delivery, it's how you say it. And I think the worst thing that could ever happen is you talk to someone else, and then that person go and tell that person, because now you've lost the story. You've lost the delivery. They found out through someone else, which makes the situation much, much worse. So I think that making sure that you go directly to that person, making sure that you watch your tone, that you watch your delivery, and that you don't accuse, that you just state how you have felt and say, I know that probably wasn't your intention, but this is what I felt. Being very honest. What happens when you're so quiet that you miss the opportunity to give your perspective? So I have definitely been there. And I will say this, I have had times in meetings where I wanted to give a perspective, or I wanted to say something immediately, and I didn't, and I did regret it. And some things that I have done over time as I was working on myself, before I got up to the courage of actually saying what I needed to say in the moment, one thing that I used to do is write. So I would send an email. I would follow up with that person. I would schedule another meeting that was separate from the group setting. I'm assuming that this is an opportunity that's in a group setting. Because what usually happens is if it's in that very moment, sometimes we lose our nerve in the moment, right? Unless you're just a quick-witted person that can say exactly how you feel in that moment, that could be you. But I know for me, I have always been the person that kind of needs to think for a while to make sure that I am saying and I'm being clear, and I am saying exactly what I want to say the way that I want to say it. So since I need some time to think, I usually don't immediately say what I need to say, because I want to make sure that I'm saying the right thing the way that I want to say it. If you are that exact same way, email, is probably going to be your best friend. Scheduling another meeting after that initial meeting, and then that way you can give your perspective, you can say how you feel after you have had time to process and to think. And do not think that giving yourself time to process, restraining yourself, because that's number one. If you instantly say exactly what you say, it may come out the wrong way, right? So give yourself that time to restrain and to think and to process, and then you can always go back and say what you need to say, right? You don't have to say it in that moment. You can give yourself some time to process and really figure out how you want to say it. A lot of my anger stems from childhood trauma. I am learning to respond and not react. A lot of all of our anger stems from some type of childhood trauma. A lot of it. Because we usually, like I said, it's a secondary emotion. It is not the primary feeling. So usually it's because of something else. So, like I said, if someone cuts you off in traffic, you may get angry, but you may feel underneath that anger disrespect. And if you feel like you have been disrespected your entire life, you're going to get more angry at this driver who may have just been late for work or in a rush because of something else. You're going to get more angry at that person than probably anybody else. Because other drivers would be like, oh, he cut me off. Oh, well. But if you get super angry about that, then there's usually something else going on, something else in your past that's causing you to feel more angry than the normal person probably would in that exact same situation. So there's a lot of childhood things that have happened. There's history that have happened. There are things that have happened at your first job. There are experiences that have happened in the past where you didn't speak up when you felt like you should have spoken up. And now this small thing has happened. And now you're speaking up and you're going off about something that's really, really probably not necessary for you to go off on. But it's because of our experiences in our past, we will apply those same experiences to now, and then we may overreact now. So this is why it's great to talk about these experiences and talk about that childhood trauma, even when you're praying. And if you need a therapist to even talk about it too, we are okay with having both. Talk to Jesus and your therapist. Do both. Because we want to get to the root of those issues so that we can process them and handle them better in the future. What if, I think we talked about that one. How do you tell your older children that you're angry, that they are not making the right decision? Whew, okay. Here's the thing when it comes down to, even with your kids, when it comes down to telling them what you believe they should do, we can tell them, we can, list it all out. We can have all of the answers. But a lot of times they will not listen. They won't. And even no matter how you express this, especially with older children, no matter how you express this, if they feel as though they're an adult right now, then they may not listen. They may not listen. The best thing to do in this situation, though, is as they are making their mistakes, being there on the back end when you can talk to them about the mistakes that they have made and help them to make better decisions in the future. Because a lot of times when you are going after you have the childhood phase, there are like stages of the relationship between a child and a parent. And there is a phase where they completely want to imitate you. And then there's a phase where they want to rebel against you. And then usually as you get older, it kind of evens out, it kind of patterns out to where, y'all become friends again. But there is a moment in time where they just want to be the complete opposite of you. So no matter what you say, they're going to take it the wrong way. They're going to get angry. They're going to feel like you're trying to run their life, But I feel like in this, the best thing that you can do, though, is watch your reaction to make sure that you aren't reacting in a way that could possibly push them further, and that you monitor, like you flow through with that overall phase that you're going through, because it's a moment in time where it happens and then they kind of phase out of it. As they get older, they start realizing, you know what, my mama right. She right. I was wrong. I was crazy. But they have to experience it on their own for them to figure it out. What about making when your kids make you angry? Usually they don't perform an action with an intention to make you angry, but they're prodigies at producing anger within you. How do you approach that? So, very, very good. But when I think that these same things, these same tips, these same still apply, because remember, we all talked about our childhood trauma. So as we're raising kids, we could be pushing them into their own childhood trauma, right? So the more you can restrain, the more you can figure out why that is. What are they doing? Why is that making you angry? Do you feel like they're disrespecting you? And then we can talk about the disrespect. Or do you feel like they're just not listening, that you feel like they might be making a mistake? Let's work through that process of how this mistake could be happening. You still want to do all of the same thing. It's the same thing with older children. You still want to do the exact same steps where you admit that, you know what, I don't feel good. I feel angry. Let's work through, why am I angry? Let me get down to the emotion of why I am angry. And then let me figure out from there, how can I talk to them about this in a way that I am not just talking about the anger, because the anger is the secondary emotion. There's a primary emotion. Let's talk about that primary emotion. Let's talk about why you feel that way. And then, number 3, is there something that you could possibly do better that could help not progress this anger further, or could help your children not to react with this all the time, right? Like, how could we possibly say, how could we possibly change this to where we admit that we could possibly do this better? And it's challenging because even as a parent, you're like, I'm right, you're wrong. Like, listen to me, kid. Listen, I'm telling you what you need to do. But a lot of times they just have to make their own mistakes. They have to learn on their own. Even my 10-year-old will challenge me, and I'm like, girl, you're 10. I promise you're wrong. And I know that they're wrong, but I have to let her experiment. I have to let her figure out that, as she kind of goes through it, then she starts to learn that mama was right. They will get there. They definitely will. But I feel like these same 3 tips will work across the board. They're going to work across the board. How do you express your anger when the anger is directed at multiple people, but the reason for your anger involves someone else who may not want you to share your feelings? Ooh, it's directed at multiple people. You're okay, but it involves someone who may not want to share their feelings. If you are angry on behalf of someone else, then I would want to process that, because you may feel like you are taking up for that person, but if they are not ready to express that anger, and this is what we call like when you're angry for someone else because you want to vindicate that person. I want to get justice for that person. I want to be like, these people are wrong and I want to make this person feel better. So I'm going to stand up for this person because they're not standing up for themselves. And it's not going to happen. and I get it. I understand that you want to be like, it's almost like you want to be their hero. You want to help, you want to aid. But if they are not ready to talk about it, it is on you to pray about it and let them handle their own situation and let it go. Because with you trying to be involved, you're going to have, like, unless they're ready to face and tell the truth and be honest and say that they are angry, they've skipped step 2. right? They're not a part of this situation anymore. They're not even involved anymore. And now you have taken on their mission to try and help them cope with their anger. Can't do it. You have to be able to let them go. You have to be able to let them go. Oh, this is so good. This is so true. A lot of times, a lot of times, we're angry at our kids for displaying things that we are. I know so many times that I have been angry about something that I've seen in my kid that I know I did as a kid. Then I'm like, you get this from me. And probably because I don't like it when I do it. So now that I see it in you, I don't want you to do it, right? Like, if I don't like that about me, then I don't want you to be like that at all. And it's just things that we have seen in ourselves that we may not like about our own personality. And when we see it in our kids, when we see that they're stubborn, but you stubborn, then it feels like, man, I don't want them to be stubborn, but you're stubborn, right? Like, they get it from you, right? So we just have to learn how to even embrace our own faults and our own things that we have going on, so that when we see it in our kids, we don't lash out at them. We don't lash out at them. We don't lash out. Like, we know that this is a part of us as well. And sometimes we even lash out at other people, and we will get angry at other people because they will display personality traits that we have that we don't like about ourselves. And when we notice it in someone else, because we don't like it with ourselves, we will lash out at that person for having the same trait. We will lash out, and we will lash out at our kids for having the same trait. You were stubborn growing up, and now your kid's stubborn. you, went off on your mama, and now they going off on you. And it's the same. Like, of course, I have made a bunch of mistakes, but and I know you're saying that too. You have made a bunch of mistakes as well, but you turned out okay, and they're going to be okay as well. They're like, all we can do in this moment is pray for them, keep them covered, and we're going to be there. We're always going to be there, and you want them to have the better life. You want them to have the best life. But in the end, they're going to make their own mistakes, and we're going to be there to pick up the pieces and help them along the way. We don't want them to do the same things that we did, but a lot of times they still will. They still will. My mom, she taught me about credit cards for so long, y'all. She was like, don't get a credit card. Don't get a credit card. Don't get a credit card. Elena, don't do it. Y'all know, when I got to college, the first thing I did was get a credit card. And I ran it up. And I completely messed up my credit. And then I had to work my way back to get it back where I needed it to be. I had to learn. Because in that moment, I thought I knew more. I thought, yeah, she's saying don't get a credit, but I am going to be better at it. I'm going to be responsible because I'm an 18-year-old who doesn't have a job, but I'm going to be better, right? Like, that it's just what happens. And the thing is that our mistakes have made us who we are. Their mistakes is going to make them who they are. We just cover them in prayer, and we just pray that God will continue to guide them, and that the lessons that we have instilled with them will stay with them. And as long as they stay with them, they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. How do you handle being dismissed after expressing your anger? Woo! So here's the thing. You express your anger to someone else. You express your anger to someone else, and they do not acknowledge your anger. First of all, they either feel like you have no reason to be angry, or they feel like it's null and void. Like, oh, I don't care that you're angry. It could be one or the other. Here is what you have to realize in this moment. With all three of these tactics, everything that we talked about today, all of the tips that we talked about today, we talked about restraining yourself. We talked about praying about it. We talked about, having seeing how you could have possibly done it better. None of these tips had to do with the other person. Not one of these tips had to do with how that person is going to respond to you, how that person is going to react to you, what they're going to say, or what you could possibly say to them, because how you get over this really doesn't have a lot to do with the other person. Forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. All it has is to do with your personal peace. And if they dismiss you, then we go back to step number 2. You express your anger to God. You work it out with God. You work out what's that feeling underneath. You work out what's going on there and why do I feel that. You journal about it. You pray about it. You get in your Bible. You look up scriptures on it. What's the underlying feeling? And let me deal with that. Let me figure out that's what I need to do, because once you put it on the other person and what they should do, you have given them all the power. Given them all the power. And now, once you give them the power, you have put yourself on the back burner and then just decided that there is nothing that you can do anymore, because they decided that, oh, well, I've dismissed you. And so now you're stuck in this limbo place because you feel like it's on them. And since they dismissed you, there's nothing that you can do. But in reality, if you get to the root of your own problem and you forgive yourself and you say, you know what, I could have did this, and this better, but I didn't, but I will do this better later on or next time. And you know what, God, I was angry, but I really felt like it was because I felt disrespected. And why do I feel disrespected? Well, it's because I have felt disrespected in the past at my job. So how can I be more assertive, or how can I make sure that I get over these feelings of disrespect? Let me look up what scriptures are there on disrespect. Is there any way that I can look up articles or read books or trying to figure out how to be more confident or how to get over the feeling of disrespect? How can I assert myself even more? Once you start digging and making it about you and how you feel and not about them, now you've taken back all your power, and now you have given yourself a way to get over this without the other person. I'm not worried about you no more. I'm worried about why I normally feel disrespected in certain situations. I'm worried about why I normally get hurt when someone says this to me. Why does that hurt my feelings? It really don't have anything to do with you. Why am I hurt? And once you start to do that and you remove the other person, you have dismissed them from the power of it. And now you're over your own peace. I give myself peace. I give myself permission to have peace in this situation, because I'm going to look up my own scriptures. I'm going to read my own journal. I'm going to write what I need to write and do what I need to do and read the scriptures that I need to read and pray the prayers that I need to pray in order to get past this. And it doesn't have anything to do with you. I'm going to restrain myself. I'm going to pray and admit to God how I actually feel. And I am going to see how I could possibly do better in the future, how I can handle these situations better in the future. And then once I apply all of that, it's all about me. It's no longer about anyone else and how they have treated me. Okay? So thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. I am hoping that this session today was a good one for you all. If you want more, remember, we have been talking about spiritual gifts. We've been talking about emotions. Get on our email list. We have an email list. The link is in the description box. I will send you the slides from today's session. And because I want you all to write this down, I want you to put it in your phone. I want you to reflect back on these things that we talked about. And if you want to learn more, We need to study this. We need to, like, this is not a one-time lesson. You heard it this one time and now you're good. This is something that we need to reflect on every time we get angry. We need to look back on these notes. We need to watch this video again. And so I want you to get on our email list. If you want to learn more about our ministry, about the growth track, learn more about yourself, get on the email list, because we send out links to let you know anytime we're doing something, anytime we're doing the growth track, or we have another service coming up, or we're doing another teaching. We always send out emails. So please get on the email list. The link will be in the description box. And of course, if you want to support our ministry, we would feel so blessed that you have decided to do that. The link is also in the description box, where you can join our email list and you can give to the ministry. So thank you all so much for joining me. Really, really appreciate it. And I will see you guys on next Wednesday. Of course, this upcoming Sunday is going to be regular church service. We go live at 9:30 a.m. Central Time. But once you join that email list, you're going to get an email telling you exactly when we go live. And all you have to do is press the email, press the link, and it will come up. You'll see the stream. So I will see you all next week. See you on Sunday. Bye, guys. Thank you all so much.